Title: The Other Side of the Mirror. In the quaint little town of Hollow Creek, where laughter often echoed through the streets and warm evenings wrapped families in comfort, Grace stumbled upon a secret that would change everything. It all began on an uneventful Saturday when Grace, a curious 16-year-old with a penchant for daydreaming, was sent to the attic by her mother to fetch old holiday decorations. Climbing the rickety stairs to the dusty space, she felt a tingle of excitement as she entered the room layered in shadows and dust. It was a labyrinth of forgotten memories, their family history wrapped in boxes, tangled Christmas lights, and photographs from another era. While rummaging through a pile of boxes, something caught Grace's eye. A large, ornate mirror stood against the far wall, its edges intricately carved with floral patterns. The glass was slightly foggy, and she could make out her reflection, but there was something peculiar about it, something off. Her reflection seemed to ripple as if affected by a breeze in an airless room. Frowning, she stepped closer. Maybe I should clean it, she mused aloud, reaching out a tentative hand. As her fingertips brushed the cold surface, a shiver cascaded through her spine. Suddenly, the mirror pulsed with radiant light, and in an instant, the room around her warped and shifted. Grace gasped as the world folded in on itself. She stumbled through the mirror, a sensation akin to falling through water, and landed hard on the ground, not in the attic, but in a dimly lit version of the very same attic. Confusion flooded her senses. The mirror stood beside her, but the room was different. A twilight gloom cloaked everything. Wisps of fog slithered along the wooden floor, swallowing the old, familiar boxes. "Hello?" she called, her voice echoing eerily. No response came. Only a whisper of wind that seemed to envelope her with chilling fingers. Deciding to explore, Grace noticed a small door she'd never seen before. It creaked open at her touch, leading her into a narrow hall painted in shades of gray. Portraits hung on the walls, their subjects staring blankly, their eyes hollow and uncaring. She felt as if they were watching her, judging her. Chills prickled down her arms, but her curiosity pushed her forward. At the end of the hall, she found a room starkly different from the rest, a vibrant garden bursting with colorful flowers that hung in the air, their spectral colors glowing like jewels. The scent of lush earth and blooming petals filled her lungs. But as she stepped inside, a jarring realization washed over her. None of the flowers were moving. They were all perfectly still, eternal in their captivating perfection. The hair on the back of Grace's neck stood on end. "This isn't right," she murmured, backing away. But before she could retreat, she heard a voice, soft yet sinister, echoing through the garden. "Stay with us, Grace," it lured, sending ripples of unease through her. This place was beautiful, but it felt wrong, too perfect, too artificial. Then she saw them. Figures emerging from the garden's shadows, pale and featureless, with large, hungry eyes that glistened in the dim light. They were moving toward her, their smiles stretching wider with every step. "Grace, stay with us," they chanted in unison, their voices blending into a hypnotic dirge. Panicking, her mind raced back to the mirror. It was the only way back to her world. She turned to flee, but the figures sped forward, their arms outstretched. The garden began to twist, the plants curling up like dying vines, as oblivion enveloped her. With all her strength, Grace sprinted toward the hallway, her heart pounding deafeningly in her chest. The figures followed, echoing her name, their call becoming more frantic. She reached the door, adrenaline fueling her movements. "No," she screamed, hurling herself into the mirror. The world pulsed once more, and she tumbled back into the attic, breathless and shaken. The mirror stood as it always had, untouched by her ordeal. She sank to the floor, shaking with fear, the whispers of that other world fading into silence. After a long moment, she looked back at the mirror. Everything seemed normal. The dust settled, but as she stood up, she caught a glimpse of her reflection. Her eyes were different, darker. And behind her, the whispers returned, a soft murmur lingering in the shadows. "Stay with us," they whispered sweetly. Grace's blood ran cold as she realized the other side had claimed a part of her. But the real horror began when, each night since, her reflection would sometimes smile back at her, even when she didn't. The mirror was no longer just a reflection, it was a window, and she was never truly alone again.